I'm Braden, author of the book Demon Riding Shotgun, which just recently won the Colorado Authors League Award for excellence in both the science fiction and fantasy and the paranormal categories. To celebrate, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the book, and then I'm going to read an excerpt from it. So first of all, this book is set in the same universe as my Magic Smith series, but you don't have to have read any of the previous books in order for this one to make sense. The book is a dual narrative detective story with Mira trying to discover the identity of a mysterious antagonist after stumbling onto a secret plot that threatens the city of Baltimore. While at the same time, the second narrator, who's a cop named Ty, is tracking Mira as the primary suspect in a murder investigation. Now, one of the highlights of this story is that the main character, Mira, has been possessed by a demon since she was a child. Most people possessed by demons, which are called rifters in my world, burn out and self-destruct within a few weeks or a few months of being possessed, sometimes in as little as a few days. But Mira is unique in that she's found a way to balance with her demon for years. And as far as she knows, she's the only one who's ever managed that. This excerpt that I'm going to read is right after a scene where Mira was temporarily separated from her demon, and now that they've gotten back together, they need to reestablish their balance. Mira scooped a handful of shockingly cold water into her palms and splashed it on her face. She gasped and shook. Icy drips trickled down her neck, soothing the raw skin where the collar had burned her. The distorted reflections on the tumbling surface of the water threw back swaths of color with little detail, but Mira could still see that half her hair was white, and her left eye shone a brilliant gold. She and her demon were matched equally at the moment, or near enough, each with one hand on the steering wheel, which might seem like a balanced partnership, but was a sure recipe for a wreck. Because her demon was naturally so much more powerful than her, their balance needed to be far from even, like a heavy-handled knife balanced on a fingertip. There was a lot more material on one end because the other was so dense. In Mira's case, the demon could only keep the smallest portion of herself manifested, or the body they shared would be torn to pieces by the force of her presence. Even now, after the feedings that had temporarily stabilized her, Mira could feel the strain on her cells. Purplish stains were starting to form around her fingernails and trace up her fingers like the ground cracking in advance of an earthquake. She pressed her palms to the damp earth and took a deep breath of moist air. "We need to reset the anchors." The demon's voice swelled and faded as though she was rapidly changing positions, flitting about Mira's mind, unable to hold still, the incorporeal equivalent of pacing. Nodding, Mira shifted so she was sitting in a more comfortable position. They hadn't had to reset their anchors in years, and she wasn't sure how long it would take. She relaxed her neck and shoulders until her chin rested against her chest, then closed her eyes and took another long, steady breath. She opened herself up to the energy around her, not in unshielded abandon as she had in the police van, but by allowing a thin trickle to funnel through a specific point that she controlled like a sluice gate. She could feel the rift energy, the energy her demon was made from, seeping into her, filling her reservoirs. At the same time, she could feel the pull of the demon's power, tearing away the energy that kept her alive, the physical bonds of her mortal form. This was the balance that they maintained, the cannibalistic partnership, each devouring the essence of the other for the power they needed to perform magic. While the demon could channel vast amounts of rift energy, far more than Mira could handle without risking a burnout, she relied on Mira to manifest that energy in the physical world. Mira found the first of the dozen or so anchor points buried deep within her body, places where her practitioner magic and the demon's rift energy balanced in perfect harmony. Usually. The anchor was tethered into the physical matter of Mira's body, searing and spreading like an infection as the pure rift energy of the demon sought to overwhelm its human host. The demon was there with her, throttling back the surge of rampant energy as best she could without pulling out entirely. Drawing off some of that energy, Mira shifted it through the magical filter that transformed it from chaotic potential to useful fuel. Then she pumped it back into the anchor. The balance shifted. Mira and her demon each pushing harder or pulling back as the anchor flickered between existing in the rift between worlds and a point on the physical plane. When both Mira and the demon could affect the anchor evenly, they tied it off with magic, sealing the anchor in place. They moved on to the second and the third, each time pushing and pulling to find their balance. With each anchor that snapped into place, Mira could breathe a little easier. The shaking in her limbs subsided. Her sense of being out of control faded. The anchors didn't exist only to connect Mira with her demon. They were the firewall that kept them separate and distinct. As those walls went up, the demon shifted further into the background, present but no longer overwhelming. As Mira continued to set anchor after anchor, her mind wandered once again to the possibility that other rifters might have found this balance, learned to share control in such a way that they wouldn't burn each other out and self-destruct. She thought of Decker. She'd only seen him from a distance, but he'd worn no gloves or glasses, nothing that would hide the effects of long-term demon possession. If he was a rifter, he'd found a way to bypass the usual relationship, just like Mira. She clenched her jaw. Even if Decker had learned how to survive with his demon, he and Mira were not the same. Her thoughts shifted to the policemen she'd fed from in the back of the van, and La Rosa draped over the steering wheel with blood running down the side of her face. Threads of doubt slithered into the cracks of her self-righteousness. Was she any better than the rifters she put down? Than Decker? He'd killed his wife. He'd kidnapped and maybe killed Gemma, but she still didn't know why. And reasons aside, Mira's hands were hardly clean. Focus! The levels of Mira's magic were wobbling like a drunk juggling jello shots. She cleared her thoughts of Decker and doubts and what it meant to be a rifter and concentrated on evening out the flow of her power. The last anchor clicked into place like a key turning in her soul. She fell back against the soggy bank, panting. She could tell without looking that the white in her hair had returned to a thin strip, and her eyes would be as close to the same color as they ever got. She had both hands on the wheel again, with the demon safely parked in the passenger seat until she was needed. Let's not do that again anytime soon. All right, so I hope that you've enjoyed this passage from Demon Riding Shotgun and learning a little bit more about how Mira and her demon coexist. Once again, I'm L.R. Braden. Thank you so much for joining me, and happy reading.